She ran out to greet her father, dancing with joy. She didn't know that she was about to die because of a promise he made to God. Jephthah made a vow, "Whatever comes out of my house first, I'll offer to God." He never imagined it would be his only child. It's the most tragic promise in the Bible. And what happened next has confused readers for thousands of years. Before we uncover the heartbreaking story of Jephthah's daughter, don't forget to subscribe to the Bible Stories, where the forgotten chapters of Scripture come alive. Jephthah was no ordinary man. He was the son of a prostitute, cast out by his own family. But when trouble came to Israel, they begged him to return and lead them to war. Though rejected, Jephthah became a mighty warrior. The elders of Gilead offered him leadership, but only if he could defeat the Ammonites. Before going into battle, Jephthah made a desperate vow to God. "If you give me victory, I will sacrifice whatever comes out of my house first." God gave him victory. The Ammonites were crushed. Jephthah returned home in triumph, but what he saw next shattered him. His daughter, his only child, was the first to come out, smiling, dancing, innocent. And Jephthah tore his clothes in agony. She asked, "Father, why are you weeping?" And then he told her about the vow. She didn't cry. She didn't run. She listened, then nodded. Jephthah's daughter didn't plead or protest. Instead, she made a strange request. "Give me 2 months to wander the hills and weep." She wasn't mourning her death. She was mourning her virginity, her lost future, her wedding that would never happen. For 2 full months, she walked the wilderness with her friends. No laughter, no celebration, just weeping and acceptance. When she returned, she said only one thing: "Father, do to me as you vowed." And Jephthah did not turn away. The Bible doesn't describe the sacrifice in detail, but from that day forward, Israelite women remembered her every year. Jephthah kept his vow, though many scholars still debate what sacrifice truly meant. Was it death or lifelong service? Some believe she wasn't killed, but given to the temple to live in seclusion and never marry. Still, it was a life taken. Jephthah's heart was shattered. He had victory over his enemies, but lost the one person he cherished most. Israel never forgot her. Every year, the daughters of Israel would go out and mourn, 4 days of silence for one tragic vow. Her name was never mentioned, but her story echoed forever, warning us about promises made in moments of desperation. In ancient Israel, vows made to God were sacred, binding, and irreversible. Jephthah's vow, made in haste before battle, stood as a chilling reminder of this tradition. Breaking it would mean dishonor. Fulfilling it meant heartbreak. This was a time when honor meant everything, even if it shattered families. Jephthah's daughter asked only one thing: 2 months to mourn in the mountains with her friends. Not her life, but her lost future. No husband, no children, no legacy. She grieved not her death, but what she would never become. This was a unique sorrow, filled with both dignity and silence. After 2 months, she returned willingly. No struggle, no resistance. Her faith in God and her father's vow remained unshaken. It's a moment that stuns even today, a young girl embracing a fate she never asked for, just to keep a promise she never made. Some scholars argue she was never physically sacrificed, but instead lived a life of perpetual virginity, secluded in God's service. Even so, it was a sacrifice of her life as she knew it. Whether death or isolation, the result was the same: a future lost for a father's desperate deal. Her story, tucked in the Book of Judges, was not meant to glorify violence, but to warn against rash vows. Jephthah's daughter teaches us that some promises, even made to God, come with devastating consequences. Her silence speaks louder than any lament ever could. Jephthah's daughter was not just a victim, she became a symbol. For generations, Israelite women commemorated her memory with an annual tradition. They didn't forget her, even when Scripture moved on. Her quiet strength echoed through centuries, reminding Israel of the price of careless devotion. The vow itself reveals Jephthah's lack of trust. He bargained with God as if divine victory needed human sacrifice. This tragic misunderstanding showed the danger of blending faith with superstition. God never asked for a life. Jephthah assumed it. And that mistake altered his legacy forever. What if Jephthah had simply trusted God without a vow? He was already chosen to lead, already favored to win. The story shifts from victory to tragedy the moment he speaks the words. This wasn't about obedience, it was about fear. And fear, disguised as piety, can destroy. Some believe the silence of the daughter speaks volumes. She questions nothing, pleads for nothing. Is it submission? Or is it a quiet protest? Her strength lies not in resistance, but in acceptance, making her one of the most mysterious, yet courageous, figures in the Bible. The story of Jephthah's daughter isn't easy to tell. It challenges us. It forces us to wrestle with faith, sacrifice, and silence. She was not just a girl lost, she was a legacy born. Her memory endures not in triumph, but in the quiet courage of surrender. Some scholars argue Jephthah's daughter wasn't literally sacrificed, but instead dedicated to temple service, remaining unmarried for life. While this interpretation brings relief to many, the emotional weight remains. Either way, her future was taken, her dreams left unfulfilled, all because of a reckless vow. The story of Jephthah's daughter isn't just about sorrow, it's about purpose. Her final days weren't wasted in fear. She embraced her fate with unusual grace. In a time when women had little voice, she shaped history without saying much, just by being faithful to what she believed mattered. This tale became a warning for future generations. Vows to God are not to be made lightly. Jephthah's mistake showed how even a leader can blur zeal with arrogance. The silence that followed his daughter's death wasn't peace, it was shame. And it echoed throughout Israel's history. Each year, Israelite girls would go into the hills to remember her, mourning her life and honoring her strength. This 4-day tradition wasn't just about sadness. It was their way of saying, she mattered. In a world that often overlooked women, they made sure she would never be forgotten. Jephthah won the battle, but lost his future. His daughter paid the price for a promise he didn't need to make. The Bible doesn't offer closure, it leaves us to reflect. And maybe that's the point, that sometimes the greatest lessons come from stories that disturb more than comfort. Jephthah's story exposes the danger of treating God like a dealmaker. He tried to secure victory by offering something in return, forgetting that God had already promised to be with Israel. His daughter's loss became a symbol of what happens when faith is twisted into bargaining. The tragedy lies not just in the sacrifice, but in its silence. The Bible records no outcry from the elders, no challenge from the priests, no resistance from the people. It's a chilling moment when a nation watches a young woman's life end, and no one steps in to stop it. Jephthah's daughter never had a name in Scripture, but her legacy lasted for centuries. For 4 days every year, Israelite girls remembered her. It wasn't a festival of death, but a vigil of dignity. In honoring her, they gave voice to countless women lost in silence. Some believe God allowed this tragedy to be recorded not to endorse it, but to condemn it. The silence in the narrative forces us to feel the weight of a preventable horror. It teaches us that rash decisions, even made in God's name, can destroy innocent lives. Jephthah's vow reminds us how words have power and consequences. His victory should have been a moment of national joy. Instead, it ended with mourning and regret. The lesson? That spiritual promises must never come from pride, but from wisdom, humility, and love. Jephthah's daughter showed a level of bravery rarely seen in Scripture. She didn't argue, plead, or run. Instead, she accepted her father's vow with faith that defied fear. This wasn't submission out of weakness. It was the strength of someone who trusted God even in the darkest moment. Her request was simple: let her mourn in the mountains with her friends. This quiet act of courage has echoed through the centuries. While Jephthah's name appears in Hebrews 11 among the heroes of faith, the tragedy surrounding his daughter casts a shadow over that honor. How could someone known for faith also cause such grief? The Bible doesn't resolve this tension, and maybe that's the point. It forces us to wrestle with it. Even faithful people can make devastating mistakes. And Scripture doesn't hide those flaws. It reveals them to teach us discernment. Many scholars today debate what Jephthah actually did. Some suggest he only dedicated his daughter to lifelong service at the tabernacle, never marrying, never bearing children. Others believe the sacrifice was literal. But no matter the view, one truth remains. The story is steeped in sorrow. It warns us that interpreting God's will through our emotions or desperation can lead to unintended and tragic outcomes. The tragedy of Jephthah's daughter isn't just her untimely end, it's the absence of wisdom in spiritual leadership. No one stepped in. Where were the priests who could have overruled the vow? Where were the elders who could have spoken truth into Jephthah's life? Sometimes silence is as deadly as action. This scene highlights the importance of accountability and wise counsel, especially in moments when emotions run high. The story of Jephthah's daughter was never meant to entertain. It was meant to shake us. It forces us to confront the cost of spiritual ignorance and the dangers of vows made without understanding. And yet, in her, we see a young woman whose faith outshone her father's. She trusted God beyond fear and accepted her fate without bitterness. Her legacy is not the vow, but the courage she showed in the face of it. After she left for the mountains, the Bible tells us she spent 2 months mourning her virginity. This wasn't just about not having children. It symbolized the end of her future, her lineage, her dreams. In ancient Israel, having a family was everything. To die childless was to vanish from history. Yet she mourned with dignity, not despair. Her grief was real, but so was her strength. Her story reminds us that even in loss, honor can endure. When the 2 months were over, she returned to her father. Just those words, she returned, carry an emotional weight. She could have stayed away. She could have fled. But she didn't. Her loyalty, her obedience, her deep faith, these things challenge us. In a culture where obedience to God was often misunderstood, she acted with clarity. Whether or not we agree with the vow, we must acknowledge her quiet, defiant courage. The text simply says, "And he did to her as he had vowed." No description, no detail, just silence. The Bible leaves the ending in mystery, perhaps out of respect, perhaps out of horror. But her story didn't end in oblivion. Israel remembered her. Every year, young women would go out to honor her memory. She became a symbol of sacrifice, of obedience, of misunderstood faith. Her name, though never mentioned, echoed across generations. Jephthah's daughter challenges our theology. Was God pleased with her death? Did he demand it? No. Scripture never says that. In fact, God had already forbidden human sacrifice. This was a human error, a moment when culture, zeal, and emotion overshadowed divine wisdom. And still, she shines. Not because of what her father did, but because of how she responded. Her story becomes a mirror to examine our own faith and choices. In the end, the story of Jephthah's daughter isn't about tragedy alone. It's about legacy. Her sacrifice birthed a tradition of remembrance. Her silence spoke louder than any outcry. She reminds us that history often remembers the unheard, the unnamed, the unseen. And maybe that's why the Bible doesn't mention her name. Because she represents all the forgotten voices, the faithful who stood tall, even when the world failed them.